Dragon Ball, I am a digitized Saiyan. Chapter 11. Noticing Yingqi's affirmative expression, the turtle immortal coughed twice again, and his expression became more serious than ever. Yingqi, I like your meeting gift very much. But until I have confirmed your mind, I will not teach you any martial arts casually. Quote. The turtle immortal's answer had been expected by Yingqi. This old man usually looks out of tune, but he is still quite reliable at critical moments. The reason why he refused to guide him as easily as he did with Sun Wukong and Klin was probably because he was afraid that he would run away to do evil after he learned it, and then there would be no one to cure him. Come to think of this. Yingqi nodded in understanding, but he also threw out the grandiose excuse that had been prepared a long time ago. Teacher Wushan, I can understand your worries. However, if it weren't for the future of the planet, I wouldn't have bothered you. Quote. The turtle immortal furrowed his snow-white eyebrows. What do you say? Yingqi said slowly. To tell you the truth, in fact, I still have a small special ability. It is a picture that can foresee the future in your sleep. Not long ago, I foresaw a very terrible scene. The end of the earth was about to come. Quote. The turtle immortal said very wisely, the end of the earth. Yingqi nodded. Not bad. I foresaw that the great demon king of Vic, who had almost destroyed the world, had reappeared in this world. Brought fear and death back to the world. To make matters worse, he will also rejuvenate himself through something called a divine dragon. In order to prevent the whole world from being enveloped in the ferocity of this demon king, I must strengthen myself as soon as possible and defeat him when the day really comes. These words undoubtedly had a great impact on the nerves of the turtle immortals. In this life, so far, if you have to say that the person who impressed him the most, it is undoubtedly the great demon King Vic. That kind of invincible domineering posture. There is also a terrifying strength that is so strong that it is desperate. Even his most respected teacher Wu Taito is far from being his opponent. In the end, he died because of it. The turtle immortal took off his sunglasses in shock, and spat flew sideways. No, it's impossible. The great demon king of Bic has been sealed by my master Wu Taito, and it is impossible for him to escape. The rice cooker used to seal it was thrown into the sea by my own hands. Quote. Yingqi didn't deny it, it's not the great demon king of Vic who escaped by himself. In my dream, 3 people found the rice cooker in the deep sea. Then he released the great demon king of Vic. Quote. It's just unreasonable. The turtle fairy was so angry that his nose was crooked. My master, Wu Taito, gave up his life to seal the peerless demon, and there were humans who were stupid enough to release it. Is this an attempt to destroy the world? No, I've got to get the rice cooker back. Let me think about it. Where did you lose the rice cooker back then? Yingqi smiled and didn't say anything, but quietly watched the turtle immortal performance. The turtle immortal finally scratched his head embarrassedly and lost his mind. He clenched his fists again, coughed lightly, and said, Are your dreams really that effective? Could it be just dreams? Yingqi said with certainty, those events that I had a hunch, 100% will be realized. The difference is only in the early and late time. Teacher Wu Tian, you have seen the great demon king of Vic with your own eyes, you must understand his terribleness. Therefore, for the sake of the earth, for the sake of all mankind, please. The turtle immortal was stunned for a moment, and said slowly, I understand. So, where do you want to start? Of course, you have to do a full set of plays. Yingqi replied without hesitation, let's start with the demon seal wave that can seal the great demon king of Vic. Demon seal wave. The turtle immortal's eyes flashed with surprise, and he no longer had any doubts about Yingqi's character. The reason is simple. This trick is extremely depleting to the human body, and if the physical strength is insufficient, 9 times out of 10 it will lose its strength and die. Good. In front of Kamisenya. Demon seal wave. With Yingqi's shout, the entire space environment changed to green. And in front of Yingqi, a giant, large clockwise vortex formed. In an instant, the poor sea turtle that was acting as the sealing object at the front was directly sucked in, and after distorting and shrinking, it spun rapidly in the whirlpool passage. Yingqi spotted the opportunity, put his index finger and middle finger together, and suddenly threw it down. The turtle screamed, and with a pillar of green light, it crashed into a half-used rice cooker. With a final snap, the lid closed. It worked. Quote. Yingqi's eyes couldn't help but light up. This is pointed out by someone in his own membrane cord is just different. Counting this time, it was only the 5th time, and in less than half a day, he had already mastered it completely. And, more noteworthy, with the memory of his data-incarnate body, there is no possibility of error in the future. Wherever you want, you can seal whoever you want. This is quite a perverted skill. As long as the physical strength is enough, an immortal body as strong as Zama's must be obediently sealed. The turtle immortal, who had been silently observing beside him, was even more shocked by Yingqi's talent in his heart. You must know that in order to learn the magic seal wave well, it took him several years. Alright, come in for lunch. You've got the hang of it. Let's learn how to make seals in the afternoon. This is a very important part. Quote. As soon as the turtle immortal's voice fell, Yingqi, who had just released the dizzy turtle from the rice cooker, had already flown into the sky. Thank you, Teacher Wushan. But there will already be people waiting for me to go back to dinner. I'll come back to you in the afternoon. Quote. The turtle immortal watched as Yingqi flew farther and farther, and finally turned into a black spot. He hadn't mastered the art of dancing the sky, so he could only say angrily, "This stinky boy, don't bring me with you if you have something to eat." In vain, I even prepared a big meal for him. Quote. The turtle, which has only now recovered from its dizziness, does not yet know what is happening. He just subconsciously complained, "Turtle immortal, can you not use me as experimental material in the afternoon? I'm just a turtle." The turtle immortal turned around, glanced at the turtle, and comforted, "Don't worry, little turtle. Yingqi has mastered the magic seal, and there is nothing for you to do in the afternoon." Quote. When the turtle heard this, he was very excited. Really, that would be great. Poor and happy, I can't imagine it now, and in a few years, it will still be reduced to the experimental material of the demon sealing wave. It's just that the test object was replaced by Sun Wukong. After a beautiful lunch at the seaside villa, Yingqi flew back to the turtle fairy house. Learn how to make seals from the turtle immortals. Yingqi's learning attitude is extremely serious. He's watched anime, and of course he knows that this seal is the most important thing. Originally, Tenanx had already sealed Zama's, but Goku forgot to bring the seal, which led to a collapse. The lessons of the past are still in front of us. Spring goes to autumn, and the cold and heat are easy to meet. In the blink of an eye, Yingqi had been here in the turtle immortal house for 5 months. What he has gained over the course of 5 months has been phenomenal. First of all, Yingqi squeezed all the skills on the turtle immortals. Now his list of skills looks like this: Sky Dance, Energy Blaster, Energy Bomb, Protective Shield, Artificial Moon, Demon Sealing Wave, Turtle Sect Qigong Wave, Afterimage Fist, Multiple Afterimage Fist, Drunken Fist, Hypnosis, Mind Reading, Golden Bondage, and 10,000 Kingdoms Shocking Palm. Secondly, Yingqi was here in the turtle immortal house, and finally learned the 2 basic abilities that he valued the most. One is the free control of qi, and the other is the perception of qi. The former allows him to gather and condense his aura as he wants, while the latter is an excellent means of responding to enemies and reconnaissance, and can also lay the foundation for teleportation in the future. Speaking of which, these 2 abilities really cost Yingqi a lot of time and effort. In the 5 months he had been cultivating in the turtle immortal house, it had taken less than a month to drain all the skills on the turtle immortal, and most of the rest of the time, he was comprehending these 2 basic abilities. This is also a helpless thing. Although qi exists in essence, it is too ethereal to describe. If you can comprehend it, you can grasp it at once, and if you can't comprehend it, you can toss it in vain. At this point, the turtle immortal, who is extremely experienced, has no way to help him take a shortcut. Fortunately, Yingqi himself was also angry and did not embarrass the traverser. After listening to the turtle immortal's own specific qi cultivation experience, combined with his own situation, he meditated and pondered for more than 4 months, and finally got a satisfactory result. As for other aspects, because of 3 meals a day and supper, Yingqi's blood bar also increased again, becoming 6,156. The combat power value was only increased by 4 points to 230 due to the fact that he did not deliberately cultivate, but there was a 500 kg weight bearing. To this extent, whether it was the turtle immortal or Yingqi himself, they all knew that it was time to leave. The open space outside the Kamezen house. The turtle immortal and Yingqi stood opposite each other. The turtle immortal asked with a solemn face, "Now what are your chances of defeating the great demon king of Vic?" Of course, Inch knew that he was going to win. But in front of the turtle immortal, he still said modestly, "I don't know. I guess it's 5 or 5. I still need more practice." Quote. The turtle immortal nodded. "I can't help much in the future. It's all up to you. I have one more suggestion, though. You can try your luck at Kalanta. The Carlin immortals on there may be able to help you take it to the next level." Quote. This concept is almost the same as that of Yingqi. The next thing he wanted to go to was the Carlin sanctuary. After hearing this, Yingqi couldn't help but fold his hands, bowed to the turtle immortal, and said sincerely, "Teacher Wushan, thank you for your careful guidance during this time. So, I'm going to take my leave." Quote. "Wait a minute," said the turtle immortal, suddenly raising his right hand. Yingqi looked at the turtle immortal in surprise. The turtle immortal threw away the crutches and removed the heavy turtle shell from his back, and said with his limbs moving, "Before I tried your strength with my own hands, I still don't feel at ease after all, old man. It just so happens that I also want to be active. How about accompanying me in the last battle?" Yingqi's eyes lit up. "I really can't ask for it." Hearing Yingqi's agreement, the turtle immortal spewed out 2 clouds of white gas from his nostrils, and immediately set up a posture. Yingqi suddenly said again, "Teacher Wushan, I have one more request." Quote. "Huh." The turtle immortal was a little confused. Yingqi Zheng said, "Even after I win, Teacher Wushan, how about giving me the glass bead under your neck and the banana fan in the room?" The dragon beads and the banana fan are placed here by the turtle immortals, which is a tyrannical thing. The former was hung as an ornament, and the latter was thrown away as garbage a few years later. Rather than this, it is better to let him use it wisely. The turtle immortal agreed without any hesitation, "Okay. But what if you lose? Then I will have people send the latest issue of the Dream Girl group photo to Guaxian Island every month." Inki was quick to say, "Deal." The turtle immortal's eyes lit up and agreed, but in a blink of an eye, it changed to the serious appearance just now. Yingqi breathed a sigh of relief, and freely converging part of the qi in his body into the cells, suppressing his combat power to the same level as the turtle immortals. It's not that he has any masochistic tendencies. It's not to pretend to be forced, either. But in the early stage of this Dragon Pearl, relying on combat power to suppress and win, there is no point at all. What's more, this is also the time when he needs to replenish his combat experience and cultivate his skills against the enemy. The duel of the same level of combat effectiveness can undoubtedly help him grow rapidly. Sun Wukong, the Chosen One, came step by step like this. The turtle immortal instantly noticed that Yingqi's aura was much weaker, and a look of doubt flashed in his eyes, but he was not slow to make a move. In the blink of an eye, it had already shot in front of Yingqi like lightning, and a sharp punch slammed into his chin. Yingqi shook slightly, and his left fist immediately counterattacked. Slap smack smack s. The two of you came and went, and in a short time, they exchanged more than 30 fists. Yingqi punched the turtle immortal Hun chest, and the turtle immortal also kicked Yingqi in the lower abdomen. The two of them interlocked their fingers, both trying to suppress each other, but after finding that they were always evenly matched, they quickly jumped away from each other. Yingqi took the time to look at the blue screen interface. The damage caused by the turtle immortal's kick to him was 10 points, and the self-healing speed of his body was 1 point per second, and by now it was half full. I can't help but secretly sigh at the strength of the data incarnation. Even if he can't beat the turtle immortal, dragging him can drag him to death. Turtle, Pi, Chi, Gong, Wave. The turtle immortal clasped his hands together, and when Yingqi browsed the attribute interface, he decisively came up with his own trick. I saw a snow-white ball of light, rapidly expanding and rounding in his closed palm, and scattering dazzling white light in all directions. Immediately, a white light wave the size of a basketball dragged the long tail of light and quickly blasted towards Yingqi. Haven't arrived yet. Yingqi had already deeply felt a stream of heat coming along with a strong wind, and the powerful energy impact also caused waves in his heart. The pupils reflected the moment of the turtle school qigong. The two thoughts of using the Turtle Sect Qigong Wave against the Turtle Sect Qigong Wave and the use of a protective shield all flashed through his mind. And he instantly vetoed them. His real strength far surpasses that of the Turtle Immortal, and the speed of the Data Incarnation body is more advantageous, and the wave is simply bullying a child. It makes even more sense to open the shield. With his infinite physical strength, this protective shield can be maintained until the heavens and the earth are old, and it is impossible for the Turtle Immortals to break the defense until they die. Since neither of these is desirable, then it has to be forced. Quote, Yingqi relied on the characteristics of the Data Incarnation of the body to be immortal and uninjured, and boldly supported his hands forward. The Turtle Immortal was startled when he saw this. He was very aware of the power of his Turtle Sect Qigong Wave. Ah! Yingqi shouted, his hands were like holding up a volleyball, and he forcefully lifted the Turtle Sect Qigong Wave and turned it back. The Turtle Immortal was still worried about Yingqi, but in a blink of an eye, he saw that the Turtle Sect Qigong Wave was attacking him again. In the rush of accidents, it is inevitable that there will be some hurry. But he was experienced in combat, and he swept backwards with a little tiptoe. The Qigong Wave crashed into the ground, exploding an astonishing ball of flames and a cloud of smoke and dust. The Turtle Immortal secretly said that it was a fluke. However, at this moment, Yingqi's voice sounded ghostly behind him. Teacher Wu Tian, you are careless. Not good. The Turtle Immortal's eyebrows twitched, and when he was about to use the afterimage fist to evade, he felt a finger on the back of his head. As the creator of this move, how could he not tell what Yingqi was using now, which was the golden binding technique? The next moment, he felt several areas of his brain paralyzed, and with the ensuing consequence, he couldn't move a single bit. The brain uses nerve electricity to control bodily movements. The principle of the skill is that the electrical current emitted by the tips of the fingers paralyzes the brain system and prevents it from issuing instructions. In this way, the effect is similar to that in martial arts novels. Wow! Yingqi appeared in front of the Turtle Immortal who couldn't move, and said with a slight smile, Teacher Wushan, the next move I am going to take the heavenly palm of all nations. So, this competition, I should be considered a winner. After a long time, the paralysis in the Turtle Immortal's brain gradually subsided. The Turtle Immortal who felt that he could move freely, faced Yingqi who was smiling, and coughed twice in embarrassment. What an old bone. The reaction was also sluggish. Didn't even survive 10 moves. Quote. But his voice changed, and his face showed a worried face. If you only have this level, I'm afraid you are far from being the opponent of the great demon king of Vic. If it hadn't been for the negligence caused by Yingqi's hard blocking of the Turtle Sect's Qigong Wave just now, he estimated that there would still be a protracted battle between the two. Ji told a white lie, I only used half of my qi just now. Quote. The Turtle Immortal was surprised in his heart, and his expression was much more relaxed. This way you can almost fight. Hope you get something out of Lord Carlin. That way we have a good chance of winning. What an amazing young man these days. The Turtle Immortal sighed, took off the dragon bead used for neck decoration, and handed it to Yingqi. I'm curious to ask, what do you want this glass bead for? Yingqi took the dragon bead, briefly glanced at the 3-star dragon bead, and put it into the universal capsule. Only then did he raise his head and respond to the Turtle Immortal. Didn't I mention before that the great demon king of Bic regained his youth through the divine dragon? The divine dragon is summoned through this dragon bead, and as long as you collect all 7 of them, you can summon a divine dragon and grant any wish. Quote. What? Can any wish come true? The Turtle Immortal grinned in frustration. Inki, of course, knew what was going on in his heart, and with a smile, he took out another universal capsule and threw it on the ground. With a bang, there was an extra box on the ground. Didn't I say that when your instruction is over, there will be another big gift? Here's 100 million souls in cash, and I'm going to give it to you. That way, you'll be able to buy whatever you want. There is no need to use a dragon at all. Quote. The Turtle Immortal rubbed his hands almost drooling. This. How embarrassing is it? The regret of losing the dragon bead was instantly left behind by him. At the same time, he was already thinking in his mind how much he could buy his favorite treasures with this huge amount of money. You're welcome, that's my heart. Yingqi said with a firm attitude. The Turtle Immortal also accepted it half-pushed. After getting the banana fan, Yingqi once again officially submitted his resignation to the Turtle Immortal. Before leaving, however, he remembered two more things. That's right, Mr. Wu Tian. I have one more thing I would like to ask you. Do you know where the Five-Finger Mountain, known as the Hand of the Devil, is? Five-Finger Mountain. The Turtle Immortal was stunned for a moment, and said strangely, do you mean the legendary Five-Finger Mountain where the Sleeping Beauty is imprisoned? According to what I know, the Five-Finger Mountain is very large, and you can definitely see it all the way west from here. What, do you want to go and rescue Sleeping Beauty? Yingqi nodded calmly, not bad. I'm trying to get Sleeping Beauty. Quote. When the Turtle Immortal heard this, his face immediately turned red, and he leaned over to Yingqi's side and whispered, Yingqi, I'll discuss it with you. After you rescue Sleeping Beauty, can you bring it to me to see? Yingqi smiled and shook his head, I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you. Sleeping Beauty is just a beautiful crystal gem. You won't be interested. Quote. Ah, what? It's just a gem, forget it. The Turtle Immortal, who learned the truth, shook his hand again and again. Yingqi had already flown into the air, Teacher Wushan, goodbye. In the future, there will be two boys who want to learn from you. Remember to take them. Both of them will be the backbone of the future defense of the Earth. Quote. Yes, I see. The Turtle Immortal nodded in surprise. Yingqi didn't say anything, and flew towards the seaside villa at high speed. On the aircraft, you want to save Sleeping Beauty? Asked Pasta, who was piloting the flying machine. The fuselage couldn't help but jolt a little. Yingqi reluctantly explained, what are you thinking about? Sleeping Beauty is an energy gem. The energy contained in it is very huge, large, and it can even directly destroy the sun. For me, it's very useful. Quote. After getting the Dragon Pearl, he wanted to go to the Western capital as soon as possible to ask Dr. Brive to make the Dragon Ball radar. But it soon occurred to me that the energy problem of the spaceship and the production of the gravity system need to bother each other. In that case, instead of bothering many times, it is better to solve the problem all at once. As for the energy problem of the spaceship, Yingqi instinctively thought of Sleeping Beauty for the first time. Because this gem that claims to be able to provide a giant, great power that can destroy the sun is really impressive. Hearing that Sleeping Beauty is not human, Pasta also returns to normal. After flying west for 2 days, at noon on the third day, Inch finally saw the legendary Devil's Hand Five Fingers Mountain. It's also strange to say. Originally, it was a sunny day, but as soon as I entered the area of Wuji Mountain, the sky immediately became cloudy, but no rain fell. In the dim sky, the craggy and strange shape of the Five-Finger Mountain is really like the palm of a demon squirting out of the ground. Pasta couldn't help but mutter, this place is really weird enough. Quote. Yingqi, who had already seen the demon god castle, nodded, how can the dwelling place of the vampire demons not be weird? If you go any further, you may be attacked. Quote. Pasta is now obedient to Yingqi's words. Hearing this, he immediately lowered the aircraft. Stepping out of the cabin, Yingqi turned. Looking at the machine gun that had already been picked up, Pasta persuaded, otherwise, you can go back to the western capital first and wait for me. Those vampire demons in Daedric's castle are just minions to me. I've got the gem and I'll be going to the western capital to meet you soon. Quote. Pasta didn't accept Yingqi's suggestion this time, shook her hair heroically, and winked playfully, I'm not at ease if you go alone. Don't worry about me, I was once a good fighter. Maybe it can help you this time. Quote. Yingqi shook his head helplessly and said nothing more. Pasta can follow if she wants. Anyway, those vampire demons in the demon god castle are just some big scum with a combat power of no more than 10. He has every confidence in keeping Pasta safe. After Pasta took the craft back into the universal capsule, Yingqi put her arms around her waist and flew straight to the demon god castle. To Yingqi's surprise, there were no demons coming to stop him. It's a rare thing. In the anime, the number of ghosts here in Wuji Mountain is amazing. All the way to the demon god castle unimpeded, Yingqi blew up the wide wooden door that was more than 3 meters high with a wave of energy shock. Inside the castle, it's not the shadow of the horror imagined. Everywhere there are beautiful and luxurious crystal chandeliers, all of which emit a faint soft glow that illuminates the entire interior of the castle. "Can't you think of this vampire demon, it's still very stylish," said Pasta, who was in Inki's arms, as she looked around, and sighed in surprise. Yingqi, who had already heard the commotion of the vampire demons, smiled faintly, and while flying towards the source of the sound quickly, he replied nonchalantly, "That's nature. Lucifer, the owner of this demon god castle, is a rare gentleman." As he spoke, Inch and Pasta had already broken into the halls of the castle. This is the center of the demon god castle, which is hollow in the shape, and the first, second, third, and fourth floors are all connected. Standing on the lowest floor, you can see the entire castle at an unobstructed view. At this moment, each floor of the castle was filled with hideous, ugly-looking vampire demons, densely packed with thousands. The reason why Yingqi and the two of them were able to go all the way just now is probably here. These vampire demons are all gathered in the castle today, waiting to taste the delicious blood. As Inch and Pasta surveyed their surroundings, the vampires spotted them. "Another human has broken in. The movement just now must have been made by them. Catch them." Soon a demon shouted. Immediately after, a large number of vampire demons on the first layer rushed towards Inchi and Pasta. "Inch, look there." In Inch's arms, Pasta was not flustered at all. She suddenly pointed to the middle of the hall. "Well, I saw that too. Let's go over and save people first." Quote. Inji nodded, looking in the same direction Pasta was pointing. In the middle of the hall, there is a high platform made of granite. And on this high platform, there is also a rather gorgeous princess building. At this moment, on the princess's building, a purple-haired girl about 13 or 14 years old was lying. The purple-haired girl was quiet with her eyes closed, as if she were asleep. It would have been a pretty good picture. But because of the man standing in front of the princess, the whole style of painting has completely changed. The man was dressed in a gorgeous suit, with a delicate blood-red bow tie pinned to his neckline. His skin was blue, his face was in the shape of a standard melon seed, and his chin was pointed enough to poke a person to death. The reason for the sudden change in painting style is that he has a pair of blood-red pupils. There was also a sharp knife and a tall glass wine glass. Yingqi has watched the anime, so he naturally recognizes this gentleman with a strange style as Lucifer, the owner of this demon god castle. Saving people is like fighting fire. Inki hurriedly hugged Pasta and flew to the high platform. Looking at Inch and Pasta, who were flying towards him, Lucifer asked in a deep voice, "Who are you, and why are you here to disturb our sacred virgin female blood-drinking ritual?" "We are the ones who want your life." Inki snorted coldly. The voice fell. Obviously, there was still a distance of about 5 meters between the three of them, but the next moment, Inki had already taken Pasta and flashed in front of Lucifer, who had not reacted at all, and hit him in the abdomen with a punch. Lucifer bowed into a prawn in severe pain, and after squirting a lot of saliva, he fainted directly. Before getting Sleeping Beauty, Inki certainly wouldn't kill him easily. The many vampire demons around who were obviously not good in IQ rushed to the high platform again. Dealing with these ugly and vicious guys, Yingqi will naturally not be soft. "Let Pasta take care of the purple-haired girl." Inki condescended, stretched out his hands, and carried the earth-shattering palms of all nations. The world is shocking, and the name has nothing to do with its actual effect. It may have been created by the turtle immortals when they were in the second year of secondary school. Its real principle is to convert gas, through a certain frequency, into tens of thousands of watts or even higher powerful currents. It's so expensive and so powerful that it's easy to kill someone. Considering that Sleeping Beauty is still in this castle, it is inconvenient to use a wide range of AoE skills, so as not to cause the castle to collapse. Then this skill, which specializes in the human body and is extremely diffuse, is undoubtedly the best choice at the moment. In a few blinks of an eye, Yingqi's hands were already flashing with lightning. The terrifying current, like a spirit snake, kept beating above his palms. Feeling that he had accumulated enough energy, Yingqi suddenly leaned forward. In an instant, 2 jagged golden pillars of energy shot out. Accurately hit 2 green-skinned demons who rushed up side by side along the steps. The 2 demons immediately screamed. The demons behind were still unclear about the situation, and they still rushed forward with full strength, and naturally they also crashed into the powerful current. That's it. 1 to 10, 10 to 100. Soon, except for a few purple-skinned demons who reacted quickly and were timid and afraid of death, the vampire demons on the first layer of the entire demon god castle were all enveloped in it by the strong electricity emitted by Yingqi. The earth-shattering screams, and the smell of burning that gradually wafted through the air, frightened the second, third, and fourth floors of the vampire demons trembling. This exaggerated scene, except for Yingqi, I am afraid that no one can replicate it. Even the turtle immortal who created this trick is impossible. The reason is simple, only unlimited physical strength can withstand this extravagant energy consumption. Yingqi slowly discharged for a full 5 minutes, and after confirming that the vampire demons who were involved were all dead, he stopped the earth-shattering palm of all nations. However, at this moment, a vampire demon who was more than 3 meters tall, with 2 red horns on his head, scarlet skin, and was covered with disgusting bumps, stepped on a pair of Hot Wheels, and quietly appeared behind Yingqi. Seeing that Yingqi seemed to be unaware, he showed a cruel smile on his face, urging the Hot Wheels to flash over the princess's building, and the black and gold spear in his hand, like a poisonous snake pounced, stabbed at Yingqi's heart. "Be careful." Pasta, who was hugging the purple-haired girl who had woken up, couldn't help but let out a desperate cry when she saw this. And the purple-haired girl in her arms also showed a panicked expression. Yingqi's horns were slanted slightly, and after mastering the ability to sense qi, unless he was a strong person whose speed was far above him, it would never be possible to sneak up on him. The vampire demon behind him, who thought he was hidden, was actually like a candle in the darkness to him, so eye-catching. At this moment, Yingqi turned around instantly, and his index and middle fingers pinched the tip of the gun with precision. The red-skinned demon's eyes widened in disbelief and he struggled desperately to pull the spear back from Yingqi's hand. But the tip of the spear that was caught by Yingqi was like a tree with roots, and it didn't move at all. He let out a strange scream, a long red silk wrapped around his body. Suddenly, like a living thing, it burst into Yingqi's right eye. Seeing this, Yingqi couldn't help but be amazed. While watching the anime, he was quite curious about this red-skinned demon. Not only did they have long guns, but they also have the celestial eye and Hot Wheels. Could it be the demonic version of it? The force easily broke the black gold spear, and then grabbed the long silk and pulled the red-skinned demon over. Another punch hit him in the temple. There was a dull thud. A noticeable pit appeared in the red-skinned demon's head. Then he rolled his eyes and fell down with a puff. No more breath. Seeing that the strongest red-skinned demons in the entire castle have been defeated, the second, third, and fourth layer vampire demons who have already become frightened birds have no courage to stay any longer. One by one, they cried and fled for their lives. It didn't take long for the entire demon god castle to be in the middle of it. In addition to the corpses all over the ground, only Yingqi, Pasta, the purple-haired girl, and the unconscious Lucifer remained. Yingqi rips off the red-skinned demon's corpse with both the celestial eye and the Hot Wheels. Came to Pasta and the purple-haired girl. "Thank you for saving me. My name is Lan Fang." The purple-haired girl said timidly. Lan Fang. Yingqi was stunned for a moment, it turned out to be her. I suddenly recalled the impressive 8-strong beauty at the 21st world number 1 martial arts conference in the anime. No wonder when I first saw her, I vaguely felt that my facial features were familiar. But how could she suddenly appear in the demon god castle and almost die at Lucifer's hands? Before Yingqi could ask, Lan Fang had already taken the initiative to tell him and Pasta about the tragic experiences of these days. It turned out that 2 days ago, Lan Fang moved with her parents, and when she was passing by here, she was unfortunately caught by the demons under Lucifer. And Lan Fang's parents had lost their lives by sucking up their blood yesterday and the day before yesterday respectively. Since she was a pure virgin, she was deliberately kept until the end. After telling these experiences, Lan Fang couldn't help crying. "It's so pathetic," Pasta said empathetically. She had experienced the same tragedy as Lan Fang. Both parents died early because they were seriously ill. Looking at Lan Fang, who was lonely and helpless, he didn't know where to go. Suddenly, she had a flash of inspiration, hugged Lan Fang's shoulders, and said sincerely, "If you don't dislike it, you can follow us. We can take care of you." Quote. Lan Fang stopped crying when she heard this, and raised her head in surprise. "Is it really possible? Big sister." Inji and Pasta defeated the demon who killed her parents, and she naturally has a special crush on both of them. Pasta softened Ru Lanfang's naturally fluffy purple hair. In the future, you will treat us as your family. Quote. Great. Lanfang hugged Pasta. Yingqi was stunned and looked at Pasta and Lanfang, who had recognized their sisters in just a few minutes, and twitched slightly. Inch gives Hot Wheels to Pasta. Inki couldn't figure out what the structure was. But the amazing thing is that it just can float in the air. And once you step on it, it will firmly stick to the soles of your feet, and at the same time, it will not burn your feet. Pasta stepped up and tried it out, and the Hot Wheels carried her steadily in midair. Then, she flew back and forth several times over the castle with great novelty, and then reluctantly returned to the high platform. Inki put away the mixed sky Aya with the universal capsule, picked up Lucifer with one hand and said, "Let's go, it's time to go and find Sleeping Beauty." Quote. Pasta nodded, but keenly noticed that Lanfang clearly showed fear when facing Lucifer. Subconsciously approached her. Under pity, he couldn't help but say indignantly, "What is this harmful demon still doing in the world?" "Don't worry. When I find Sleeping Beauty, I will naturally send him to hell," Inki explained with a wry smile. After some searching, the three of them finally found the huge, perfect diamond-shaped, and beautiful Sleeping Beauty crystal gem in the secret compartment of Lucifer's bedroom. After that, Inch happily rewarded Lucifer with an energy blast and sent him to hell to become a real demon. After leaving the demon god castle and getting on the flying machine, Yingqi thought about it, but still didn't feel at ease and let Pasta transfer to Yunzebit Heights. It was too early in the timeline, and he was concerned that Dr. Brive didn't have enough scientific knowledge. The Namek spaceship that the god was on was also found so that it could be studied by Dr. Brive. It took 2 weeks for Inch to finally find the moss-covered Namek ship in a pile of rubble. However, Yingqi did not rush to deal with it, but waited patiently in place for a while. Seeing that the god never appeared, he unhurriedly put it away with an M-type universal capsule. Western Capital. Dr. Brive's home. Putting down the famous dim sum suku comfrey cake that Pasta had brought from the northern capital, Mrs. Brive hugged Pasta warmly. "Ah, really, why did you two come to see us after so long? Hey, who is this very cute little girl?" Naturally, Pata was warmed by Madame Brive's enthusiasm, and introduced her very happily. "This is my sister, Lanfang." Mrs. Brive also smiled and hugged Lanfang, and at the same time praised, "Miss Lanfang is so beautiful, she must be an outstanding beauty when she grows up." Lanfang was still a little restrained, but she didn't expect that the wife of the richest man in the world would be so amiable. Couldn't help but be a little bolder, and took the initiative to speak. "Madam, you are a great beauty." "Oh, really?" Mrs. Brive couldn't help but chuckle, her already small eyes narrowing into obscurity. Meow. In this friendly atmosphere, the little white kitten on Dr. Brive's left shoulder couldn't help but greet Inki. Inki also beckoned to it, and then said to Dr. Brive, "I actually want to ask you for something this time." Quote. Inch didn't expect things to go so smoothly, but Dr. Brive, who had only met a few times, agreed to help without saying a word. Originally, he was prepared for heavy bleeding and the future crisis of the Earth. Inch hurriedly described his 3 needs in detail to Dr. Brive: the Dragon Ball radar, a large spaceship with Sleeping Beauty as an energy supply, and a gravity system. When Dr. Brive heard that Inch already had 2 ready-made spaceships in his hands, he immediately said that there should not be much of a problem in making a large spaceship and a gravity system. "Oh, that Sleeping Beauty crystal gem actually contains a huge or great energy that can destroy the sun. It's incredible. I can't resist the urge to study. By the way, what is that dragon radar?" Hearing this, Yingqi took out the 3-star dragon beads that had been prepared a long time ago. "This is it. This particular glass sphere emits electromagnetic waves of a specific frequency. I need you to help me build a small, purpose-built radar that can capture this frequency and be able to pinpoint it." Quote. Dr. Brive took the dragon bead, looked at it a few times and found that there was nothing special, and naturally asked, "Is the dragon bead radar made to find this glass bead, and what is it for?" Inki has watched the anime, and of course knows Dr. Brive's character. Without deliberately concealing it, he introduced, "There are 7 such glass beads in total. When they are all gathered together, a dragon can be summoned." And the dragon can grant you any wish. Quote. Dr. Brive's face was full of surprise, but before he could speak, a childish voice behind Inch was already ringing eagerly, is this true? Yingqi had already sensed that there was a faint chi behind him, neither Pasta, nor Madame Brive and Lan Fang, who were slowly approaching here, can enter and exit the house of the richest man in the world at will, and he is young, and he meets these conditions, and there is only one person at the moment, and that is the #1 heroine in the Dragon Pearl world, Boomer. Yingqi turned around, and what caught her eye was a cute little girl carved in pink. The iconic sky blue hair and sky blue pupils made Yingqi confirm her identity at a glance. Seeing this heroine who had not met twice in her visits, Yingqi felt a lot of emotion in her heart. Seriously speaking, in the future, all the Earthlings, and even the creatures of the entire 7th universe, can survive safely, and the most grateful person should be this genius lady. If she hadn't brought Sun Wukong out of that ravine, I don't know how many times the Earth would have been destroyed. Moreover, there is a good chance that the entire 7th universe will be eliminated by the whole king. These thoughts flashed through her mind, and Yingqi looked at her with a smile, nodded affirmatively, and said, yes. Super dragons are able to grant all your wishes. Quote. In the words, Yingqi secretly replaced a concept. It's amazing. I want to. The little girl pounced on Dr. Brive in surprise, trying to snatch the dragon bead from his hand. Dr. Brive couldn't help but hold the dragon bead a little higher to prevent the little girl from getting it, and looked at Inch apologetically, this is my daughter Boomer, she's so naughty. Quote. Yingqi smiled and shook his head, it's okay, I like her very much. At this time, Madame Brive, Pasta, and Lanfang had already arrived. Mrs. Brive took Boomer's little hand and said, Boomer, children can't be disturbed when adults are talking about business. No, 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 I want dragon beads, I want dragon beads. Said 5-year-old Boomer. Yingqi stepped forward and softened Rue Bulma's little head, and smiled at Lady Brive, it doesn't matter, this dragon bead should be my gift to Bulma. Boomer, she's so likable. Quote. Dr. Brive hurriedly refused. After listening to Yingqi's introduction, even he, who was already the richest man, felt that this dragon bead was quite extraordinary and too precious. Mrs. Brive suddenly covered her eyes and chuckled, since Yingqi likes this child so much, then it is better to be Boomer's stepfather. Quote. The Boomer man was a big ghost, and immediately said obediently, thank you father-in-law for sending me dragon beads. Pasta and Lan Fang both thought it was nothing, but Yingqi thought it was weird. It's nothing to be a stepfather at the age of 18, but the meaning of this stepfather doesn't seem to be very good. But, Mrs. Brive spoke. Of course, Inch will not refuse, that's really my honor. Quote. Dr. Brive scratched his head and smiled as he handed the 3-star dragon bead to Boomer. Boomer took the dragon bead and ran away happily. As Boomer's stepfather, the relationship between the 3 Ings and the Brives naturally became closer. At the gracious invitation of Mrs. Brive, Yingqi, Pasta, and Lanfang stayed here for another week. In the meantime, Pasta, Madame Brive, Lanfang and Bulma always meet up to go shopping. Because of this, the relationship between Lanfang and Boomer has also become very good. And after Inch took out the Namek spaceship and the spherical spaceship, he has been busy helping Dr. Brive. On the 8th day, Inch finally took his leave. The Brives were unable to hold on, so they agreed. In front of the flying machine, Bu Ma reluctantly said goodbye to Lanfang, and then shouted loudly, Father-in-law, remember to come back as soon as you finish your business. I'm still waiting for you to accompany me in search of the other 6 dragon beads. Yingqi smiled and agreed. Pasta piloted the aircraft and quickly lifted off, and then flew towards the continent of Shiwen, where the Carlin Sanctuary was located, according to Yingqi's instructions. Seeing the aircraft gradually turn into a black dot, the Brives suddenly looked at each other meaningfully. After Boomer ran away, Mrs. Brive smiled and said, my instincts are not wrong at all. It's a real friend to make. Quote. Dr. Brive nodded, yes, I can feel that he is a very sincere person during my time with Yingqi. I believe that in time, he will definitely do something. Quote. Mrs. Brive smiled and shook her head, you're wrong. In terms of wealth, Yingqi is already a successful man. Guess how much money he has. Dr. Brive was stunned and blinked. Mrs. Brive didn't sell it, and said directly, the deposit is 37 billion souls, which is an amazing wealth. Oh, is it? I really can't see it. It's almost time to catch up with our house. Dr. Brive was slightly surprised. Because Inky looks like him, he doesn't look like a rich man at all. Yes, I didn't expect it either. If it weren't for the fact that I accidentally saw the top diamond bank card in Pasta's hand while shopping, I wouldn't have imagined that Inky would be so rich. Mrs. Brive sighed. By the way, he's always flying around like this, what the hell is he up to? Well, I remember when I was chatting at work, he mentioned to me that the earth will become more calamitous in the future, so I have to prepare in advance. Dr. Brive picked up a cigarette and struggled to remember. Ah, what do you mean? I don't know. Quote, after 2 days, the aircraft has flown over the largest and most extensive kaolin forest in the western continent. With Yingqi's guidance, he has not gone through the wrong road. In the aircraft, Pasta was looking ahead and driving seriously. Lan Fang curled up on the sofa and read fashion magazines with relish. And Yingqi was still sitting cross-legged on the futon, meditating, thinking about the cultivation method of the new skill finger lightsaber in his mind. Suddenly, Pasta exclaimed in surprise, I see Kalanta. Lan Fang threw away the magazine, and ran to the bridge with great interest, looking into the distance through the glass. Wow, is that Kalanta? It's so high. Inky opened his eyes and stood up. Kalanta is high. If it is not high, how can it become the first place in the Dragon Bead world to quickly brush up combat power values? Thanks to her powerful eyesight, Inky can see more clearly than Pasta and Lan Fang. The special pattern on the tower was completely consistent with his memory. Pasta's men unconsciously increased their speed. After passing through a large green forest, a large open space rarely appeared on the ground. By the time they reached the bottom of the Carlin Tower, the three of them kept an eye out for the 3 Indian-like tents beneath them. This is already the depths of the kaolin forest. I didn't expect it to be inhabited. Lan Fang said curiously. Inch nodded, they should be the people who have guarded the Kaolin Holy Land for generations. Although I don't really understand this kind of behavior, I still admire this kind of sacrifice. Quote. Then Pasta turned her head, you two are standing firm. I'm going to start going down. Quote. After the aircraft landed smoothly, as soon as he stepped out of the hatch, Yingqi noticed 2 sturdy men of different races holding spears, swarthy and oil-painted. The young man had a scar on his nose, though much younger than he remembered. But Inch still recognized him at a glance. After being killed by Dao Baibai, he was resurrected by the Dragon Bead, and the father of the little Upa, Bola. Next to Blah was a middle-aged man with gray hair. If nothing else, it should be his father. And in front of the tent not far behind the 2 men, there were 2 women supporting each other. The elderly woman is supposed to be about the same age as Bella's father. Another young woman was handsome, but she had a sickly look on her face. I think these 2 must be Bella's father and Bella's wife. Outsider, who are you, what are you doing in the holy land of Carlin? Shouted the young Beulah with a wary face. Inky smiled and took a few steps forward. Hello, we have no ill intentions, we just want to challenge Kalanta. Pasta had already walked out of the hatch, and when she saw that there were 2 other women at the scene, she turned back to the aircraft to get a snack. She has now gotten into the habit of bringing snacks with her home visits. There is sincerity, but it does not appear to be a Philistine. Listening to Inky's words, Beulah and her father looked at each other in shock. As the generational guardians of Kalanta, they certainly know best how terrible Kalanta is. Many challengers fell to their deaths because of fatigue in the middle of the process. According to reliable records, no one has been able to climb the Kalanta for more than 200 years. Blah's face pale, go back. Kalanta is not something that can be challenged casually. Quote. At this time, Pasta had already pulled Lan Fang with a snack, ran to the 2 women and took the lady's route. When Beulah and Bella's father saw this, the hostility on their faces disappeared. Bella's father once again earnestly advised, young man, you better give up. Challenging Kalanta can be life-threatening. You have a very good wife, would you like to see her widowed? Inch smiled and shook his head, I'm sorry, I insisted on climbing the Kalanta. Quote. Beulah sighed, her eyes suddenly hardened, then, I will regard you as a blasphemer of the Kaolin Holy Land, and I will defeat you without mercy. Are you ready to come to your senses? Inki nodded. Without further ado, Beulah prepared to hand his father the spear in his hand. Wait a minute. Inch stopped. It's not fair to you. What you should be good at is spear attack. Don't hold back, I'll defeat you and prove that I have what it takes to challenge the Kalen Sanctuary. Quote. Beulah was stunned for a moment and nodded seriously. I understand, I respect your opinion. Quote. The two of them came to the open space on the side. At this time, Pasta and Lan Fang have become very familiar with Bella's wife and Bella's mother. The four of them sat cross-legged and ate snacks. Bla's wife and Bella's mother taste the rare snacks that Pasta brought from outside, while Pasta and Lan Fang try the dried game that Bella's wife has brought out that is unique to the Carlin forest. Bella's wife was well aware of her husband's strength, and when she saw her husband pick up the spear, Inji was empty-handed, and couldn't help whispering to Pasta, "Aren't you worried about your husband?" Hearing the salutation, Pasta glanced at Yingqi with a smile. Don't worry at all. He's incredibly powerful. While the two were talking, Inch and Beulah had already exchanged hands. Drink. Beulah roared, both as a shock and as a reminder. Immediately followed by the unity of human spears, it slammed towards Yingqi like a hurricane. Yingqi turned sideways and avoided lightly, and said leisurely, I feel that you should still have some strength left. You're welcome, just do your best to attack it. Then be careful. Beulah reminded again, and the spear speed suddenly doubled. In an instant, more than a dozen phantoms appeared on the tip of the spear, like a blooming flower, and it was covering towards the key point in front of Yingqi Hun. Yingqi only dodged and did not attack, and the whole person was like a butterfly shuttling among the flowers, easily avoiding all attacks. Seeing this, Beulah couldn't help but lose his momentum. Keenly aware of this, Yingqi reminded with a smile, be careful, I'm going to punch. Quote. Bella's heart tightened, and she hurriedly subconsciously stopped the spear body in front of her. And the moment he finished his defense, Inki's fist also arrived. After easily interrupting the spear, it was imprinted on Bella's Hun mouth with almost no gaps. Beulah flew straight up and rolled on the ground after landing. Bella's wife and mother stood up nervously. Bella's father also hurriedly stepped forward to inspect it. Beulah patted Hun with a sigh of relief, and then immediately stood up and said that he was fine. When he looked at Inch again, his eyes were full of respect. You are really strong. Now I have complete confidence that you can climb the Corinta. Quote. Yingqi smiled and didn't say anything. After a while, everyone gathered under the Kalimta. Beulah said, don't hesitate to challenge Kalanta, we'll take care of both of them. Quote. Thank you, but I'll take them up with me. Quote. Bella's family was stunned. Just as they were trying to persuade Inki not to take risks, Inki had already placed Pata and Lanfang on her left and right shoulders one by one, and then tightly clamped the two women's big kicks. Rushed to Kalanta like a runner. Only the Beulah family was left dumbfounded. Bella's father suddenly muttered to himself, it's the first time I've seen someone climb the Kalanta like this in most of my life. Yes, said Bella, nodding approvingly, I have a strong premonition. Mr. Inki, he's going to succeed this time. Inji used his fastest speed to run towards the top of the Karlanta. The rapidly alternating feet under him were almost invisible. The time to climb is undoubtedly quite boring. There was nothing in the sky but the repetitive patterns on the surface of the Kalanta and the white clouds. Pasta and Lan Fang, who were sitting on Inki's shoulders, were still a little excited at first. But as time passed, they all dozed off. In the end, he simply fell asleep. But Inki himself was not bored. He has a hint of a blue screen interface, and every once in a while the blue spots will flash, reminding him that his combat power has increased a little more. This makes Inch feel like brushing up on combat power when playing RPG games. From the 3 poles in the sun to the middle of the day, it took more than 2 hours. Inch finally sees the Temple of Carlin at the top of the tower. It was an ellipsoidal, almost Hamburg-shaped building. From the anime, Inki knows it very well. The temple is divided into 2 floors, and the lower level is where the Karen immortals eat, work, and rest. On the upper floor is a wide hall, and the stone pillars in the middle are placed with fake super holy water. It's a place for people to practice. Through the void at the bottom of the temple, Inki entered the first floor of the temple. Then put Pasta and Lan Fang down. Hey, you two wake up, the top of the Kalanta tower has arrived. Quote. Pasta soon came to his senses. Ah, is it already at the top? Lan Fang fell into Yingqi's arms in a daze before she woke up. Dancing wildly for a while. Inch held her steady again, glanced at Pasta again, and reminded in a low voice, "You two come with me, there is a Carlin immortal on the upper floor. But don't be surprised when you see it. Despite the fact that it is a white cat that has lived for more than 800 years. Quote. When Pasta and Lan Fang heard this, they couldn't help but look at each other. Through the stairs, the three of them came to the top of the wide hall. Sure enough, the three of them saw a white cat with a cane on a dragon's head. Inky folded his hands and bowed respectfully to the white cat. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Carlin Immortal." Quote. Pasta and Lan Fang also saluted together. The Karen Immortal twisted his cat whiskers. "You are the first to see me for the first time, and you are sure that I am a human of the immortals. However, then again, you are really strong. There were still two people sitting on their shoulders, and it only took more than 2 hours to climb up. Let me think about how much time it took the first turtle immortal to climb up. By the way, it took him a whole week." Yingqi said, "It was teacher Wu Tian who recommended me to climb the Kalen Tower." Quote. It's him. The Carlin Immortal nodded abruptly. "Are you also here to drink the super holy water?" Quote. Inky, of course, knows that. This so-called super holy water is actually just ordinary water. What really makes the drinker stronger is the practice of climbing the Kalen Tower and taking the bottle from the Kalen Immortals. Inky smiled. "I know. Therefore, I have come this time to ask you for super divine water." Quote. A trace of cold sweat broke out on the Kalen Immortal's forehead, and it wiped it and said, "Do you also know the existence of the super divine water?" Quote. Of course it's clear. Inky nodded. Super divine water is a miraculous liquid that can help the drinker to unleash their potential. But it is highly toxic. If you can't resist this toxicity, you will die directly. However, even Sun Wukong, whose combat power value was less than 200 at the time, could withstand this toxicity. What's more, the current value has surpassed that of Sun Wukong at that time, which is more than twice as much. Take a step back. With his data-based body, as long as the poison can't completely empty the health bar at once, it's not a big deal. This is the base camp of fairy beans. With just one pill, the health bar can be completely refilled. What could he have to worry about? Then I understand. The Carlin Immortal bowed slightly. It doesn't make much sense, but I still have to ask. What is the purpose of drinking supernatural water? As he spoke, the Carlin Immortal suddenly closed his eyes. Seeing this, Yingqi couldn't help but tilt his horns slightly. For him, who also mastered the skill of mind reading, the deliberate verbal guidance of the Karen Immortal just now, as well as the current cooperative actions, the intention was simply too obvious. The principle of mind reading is to use qi to feel the target's brain waves, and then restore them into images and information in one's own mind. In other words, mind reading can only read what the target is thinking at the moment. Therefore, before you can use the art of mind reading, you must use words to guide the target to think about the information you want to get. Meantime, it is also difficult to feel the target object. Like those who are pure-minded or innocent, such as Monkey King and Nan Wu, they can be read very easily, even with their eyes open. But in the face of a person with a complex mind like Yingqi, he needs to close his eyes and concentrate all his energy on reading like the Carlin Immortal is doing now. Look at it this way. It's not strange that the Carlin Immortals are no longer using mind reading on him. Even before coming to Kalanta, Inji had already thought about this. This will really be encountered, and Yingqi is not in a hurry to throw out the envisioned picture. His dream prediction ability, the resurrection of the great demon King Vic, and the advent of the end of the world, all of the images that seem to be real and illusory, are clearly expressed. Yingqi came to drink the super divine water in order to save the whole world. However, Inky still pretended not to know anything, and still replied, "I am actually." The words had just begun when they were interrupted by the Carlin Immortals. "Well, no more talking. I already know it all. You're such an amazing guy who has the ability to see the future. Come with me, and I'll bring you the supernatural water." Quote. After the Carlin Immortal finished speaking, he took the three of them back to the lower floor. From the cabinet on the south wall, a container with an unpretentious appearance was carefully removed, no different from an ordinary teapot. If I have to say, there is a special painting on its surface. Diamond-shaped, with a god written in white characters on a red background. The Carlin Immortal brought another porcelain teacup. Just as he was about to fall, Inky suddenly stopped him. Wait a minute, Carlin Immortal, I haven't fully warmed up yet. Hot. Warm up. The Carlin Immortal scowled, his head a little inexplicable. Yes. Yingqi replied briskly, but did not explain it carefully. Turning around, he pulled Pasta and Lan Fang to the front, and continued, I have two more things I want to trouble you, the Carlin Immortal. The first thing is to ask you to sell me all the beans you have grown over the years. The second thing is to ask you to pass on the technique of cultivating fairy beans to these two relatives of mine. Please, the fairy beans are of great significance to the whole world, and even to the entire seventh universe. Please don't cherish yourself. Quote. A treasure like a cosmic strategic level like an immortal bean, and the possession of all of them was a plan made at the beginning of Yingqi's crossing. Even if it is by force, he will achieve this goal. It's really because, first, the meaning and utility of Shando is too extraordinary for a Saiyan like him, or a digital Saiyan. The second is to let the fairy beans continue to stay here with the Karen Immortals, which is simply a tyrannical thing. I don't know how much is wasted as food. Thinking of the extravagant picture of Archilobe grabbing more than a dozen handfuls of fairy beans in a row and stuffing them into the sink, Yingqi was inexplicably heartbroken. This is definitely a god super loser. Opposite Inky, the Carlin Immortals thought they were shocked enough today. The nerves should be completely numb. After all, I learned a lot of incredible things. First of all, it is a mere mortal who actually has the ability to predict dreams that the gods do not have. Secondly, it is the great demon king of Bic, who was separated from the gods back then, who will get out of trouble in the future and bring disaster to the world again. In the end, it was a mortal who actually wanted to learn the cultivation technique of fairy beans. But, it never thought that it would be shocked by the words of the mortal in front of it again. It couldn't help but blurt out and ask, you actually know about the seventh universe? This is a secret that only immortals can know. Yingqi didn't expect that what the Kalen Immortals cared about was not the ownership of the fairy beans and the planting technology, but an insignificant issue of the cosmic pattern. Stretching his chin, he explained nonchalantly, well, my prophetic dreams are strange. It is to often learn about some secrets that ordinary people can't touch. Quote. The Karen Immortal scratched his chubby head, and sighed for a while, this ability of yours is really amazing. By the way, what did you just say? Yingqi patiently repeated the purchase of fairy beans and the learning of fairy bean planting techniques. The Carlin Immortal thought for a moment and said, these fairy beans are quite precious. You can't get a few in a year. Besides, it's useless for me to ask for your money in the world. Yingqi didn't say anything, but repeated it again with a sincere attitude. The Carlin Immortal paced back and forth for a while, and finally made up his mind. In this way, if you can tell me again, there are 3 future secrets that I don't know. I'll give you all the beans. Quote. Yingqi was stunned for a moment, and then his heart blossomed. The ancients didn't deceive me, isn't this the standard curiosity that kills cats? Deal. First, the remaining evil Saiyans in the future will attack Earth. Second, the future Emperor of the universe, Frieza, will be defeated and killed. Third, in the future, Majin Buu will break the seal and return to this world. Quote. These 3 future news, one is more terrifying than the other, and the Carlin Immortal, who knows the inside story very well, can't help but tremble in his teeth. Oh my god, will Majin Buu come back to life? This is a catastrophe for the entire universe. What happened to our 7th universe in the end? Has it been destroyed? Asked the Carlin Immortal impatiently. Yingqi sold Guanzi. I don't know about this. There are no answers to dreams. The Karen Immortal then brought 5 jars. Yingqi was overjoyed when he saw this, and all these 5 jars were full of fairy beans. All my harvest for more than 800 years is here. The Carlin Immortal said weakly. Thank you. Yingqi was no longer polite, and hurriedly packed all the 5 Ultra Immortal beans into the S-type universal capsule. Putting the capsule away solemnly, Yingqi pointed to Pasta and Lan Fang and asked, then they learn about fairy bean cultivation. I'm not in the mood for that, the world is going to be destroyed. What are you doing with fairy beans? Replied to the Carlin Immortal with a lack of interest. Yingqi smiled, then how about I exchange 3 more future secrets? Hearing that there was another secret to hear, the Karen immortal immediately came to his senses, gritted his teeth and said, okay, I agreed. Say it quickly. Quote. First, Lord Beerus, the god of destruction, will wake up in the year 778 of Eki. Second, the strongest warrior in the 11th universe is not the destruction of the gods, but a human named Jillian. Thirdly, Jaeon-sama often complains that there are too many universes now. Quote. These 3 pieces of news are more powerful than the other, maybe there are more lice and they don't bite, and they don't worry about more debts, but the Carlin immortals are relieved and their mood calms down. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them and said, don't worry, I will keep my promise. Quote. Inki, of course, would not doubt the credibility of the Carlin immortals. He returned to Pasta and Lan Fang and told them how important Shondo was to him. The 2 women immediately said that they would definitely master the fairy bean planting technology thoroughly. Subsequently, Inki began his warm-up before taking the supernatural water, climbing the Kalanta again. The climb just now increased his combat power by a total of 30 points. This means that the practice of climbing the tower is quite effective for him. So, obviously, there is no reason to give up this practice so easily like Goku in the anime. Yingqi is a normal person's thinking, so he naturally has to keep climbing the tower to brush up his combat power until he completely loses the promotion effect. Thereupon, the next 3 days, Inki uses both hands and feet, except for eating, and constantly climbs up and down the Kalanta all the time. While his combat effectiveness continued to rise, his speed was also getting faster and faster. From more than 2 hours, to an hour, and from an hour, to half an hour, 20 minutes, 10 minutes. On the 3rd day, it only took 5 minutes for Inki to go up and down. At this, the nerves of the Carlin immortals were already numb with shock. The only disadvantage is that it takes 50 runs now to increase one's combat effectiveness. To this extent, Yingqi naturally gave up climbing the tower and practiced. These 3 days of cultivation have brought him a total of 102 points of combat value increase. Now his combat effectiveness at 500 kg has become 332. Back at the top of the tower, Pasta and Lan Fang lived up to his expectations, and in these 3 days, they learned the planting techniques of fairy beans. The 2 also asked the Carlin immortal for a large piece of the root of the fairy bean. You can plant at any time. That, Karen immortal, I've finished my warm-up. Now, please take out the super divine water again. The 3 of Kalen, Pasta, and Lan Fang formed a circle, nervously observing Yingqi among them. Because not long ago, Yingqi drank a glass of super divine water. Yingqi, who was under the attention of the 3 of them, was standing steadily at the moment, although he didn't really believe that the super divine water could threaten him, but out of prudence, he was still fully prepared. His eyes were glued to the blood bar on the blue screen, and he also held a fairy bean in his left hand. And just in case, Pasta also has a fairy bean in his hand. This was to prepare for him to be fed to him after he fainted. After a full 30 seconds, Yingqi suddenly felt a shock all over. There is a strong electric current in the body, which spreads from the position of the dantian to the limbs and hundreds of remains. But Inki didn't feel any obvious pain, only a slight numbness. Soon, I saw that the health bar was decreasing at a rate of 30 points per second, at a uniform and rapid rate. Meanwhile, the combat power value is also increasing at a rate of 2 points per second. 334,336,338. It didn't stop until 502. Yingqi immediately noticed that all the abnormal sensations in his body disappeared as well. The medicinal effect of the super divine water lasted for 85 seconds, consumed 2,550 points of my blood, and increased my combat strength by 170 points. This result is okay. Quote. Yingqi thought secretly in his heart. The Karen immortal looked at Yingqi, who had always stood motionless, and couldn't help but mutter. In its memory, most of the people who drank the supernatural water would soon roll on the ground and pass out in pain. There is no such thing as the current situation of no reaction, and it is simply unique. What's going on? Could it be that the supernatural water has lost its effect? It was about to ask, but Inch looked up. Roar. Faintly, the three people surrounding Yingqi seemed to see a giant, large chimpanzee phantom roaring in the sky. A gust of wind centered on Yingqi and spread in all directions. The hair of the Carlin Immortals, Pasta, and Lanfang kept falling backwards. Yingqi realized that this was a natural overflow phenomenon of the explosion of breath in a short period of time, and quickly reined in his breath. The surroundings quickly returned to normal. The Carlin Immortal's ability to perceive aura is quite powerful, and of course he knows that Yingqi is much stronger. But it didn't know what had just happened, so it could only helplessly ask Yingqi, "What the hell is going on?" Yingqi smiled and casually handed out the porcelain teacup in his palm again, obviously. "The super divine water worked on me. Excuse me, pour me another glass." Carlin Immortal. The second cup of super divine water only consumed 1275 HP for Yingqi, but it only brought him 85 points of combat power. The third cup is even less, and while burning 637 HP, it only increases the combat power value by 42 points. The fourth cup is 318 HP in exchange for 21 battle points. The fifth cup is 159 HP in exchange for 10 battle points. The sixth cup is 79 HP in exchange for 5 battle points. The seventh cup is 39 HP in exchange for 2 battle points. The eighth cup is 19 HP in exchange for 1 battle value. By the time of the ninth cup, the super divine water had no effect on him, and had turned into pure boiled water. It's also useless to drink. Yingqi knew very well, of course, not that the potential of this body had been tapped by the super divine water. After all, the potential of Saiyans is endless. Simply because the super divine water only has so many effects. After all, it's just an earth-level treasure. When Yingqi returned the empty porcelain teacup to the Carlin Immortal said faintly, "I feel that the few days I have been with you will at least let me live 10 years less." Can you not always frighten me so much? Hearing this, the two girls next to him, Pasta and Lan Fang, secretly snickered. Yingqi smiled apologetically, and then shifted his gaze to his left palm. With its verdant color and flat shape, it doesn't look much different from ordinary broad beans. It's hard to imagine that this is a magical fairy bean that can instantly heal injuries and restore all physical strength. I believe that as long as it is swallowed, the amount of HP that has been empty for most of the tube will definitely be able to be filled in an instant. It's just. Yingqi couldn't help but observe the current blood volume through the blue screen interface again. 1392 ideographic period. Moreover, it is still recovering at a rate of 1 point per second. As a Dragon Ball fan, Yingqi certainly knows the biggest bug in the Saiyan is that after near-death recovery, the strength can increase a lot. The current scenario seems to be able to meet this condition. Yingqi couldn't help but fall into deep thought. The digitization of the body is indeed good. As long as the amount of blood is bottomless, no matter how serious the attack is, it will have no effect. 100% performance throughout the process. But this unexpectedly brought him a difficulty. I don't know how to know if my body is in a near-death state. If the body is not in that dying state, it is recovered, and it is estimated that there is no effect. The amount of blood at 1392 points seems to be very small. However, Yingqi is not sure that he is endangered. Maybe a single-digit amount of blood is endangered. Yingqi suddenly discovered that this Saiyan cheating method is not so simple. Maybe if you're not careful, you might kill yourself. But obviously, it is absolutely impossible to get Yingqi to give up this biggest cheat. Yingqi meditated. Suddenly, a flash of light flashed through his mind. In the Dragon Bead Universe OL online game, when the blood volume is less than 3% of the total blood volume, it is usually defined as endangered blood volume. You might be able to try it yourself, and when your HP drops to less than 3%, does it mean that you are also endangered? Come to think of it, Yingqi was unusually excited. After saying hello to the Carlin Immortals, as well as Pasta and Lan Fang, asking them not to disturb him, he ran to the top hall in a hurry. The current total HP is 6,468, and 3% is 194. In other words, you have to grind your blood to less than 194, and then take fairy beans to see if your strength will skyrocket. Quote. With this data flashing through his mind, Yingqi cautiously began to self-injure. He didn't use the energy blaster, for fear that if he went too far, he would be happy and sad. After a brief consideration, Yingqi clenched his right fist and punched Zuo-hun fiercely. Moment. His health has been reduced by 30 points. Yingqi nodded. The second punch, with the same force, the same angle, hit the same position. It's still a 30-point reduction. This is the advantage of a digital body. As long as he wants, he can always continue to output like this. The third punch. The fourth punch. After a full 41 punches, Yingqi's HP became 162. Thanks for watching.